Hockey Inside Out, presented to you by the Montreal Gazette.
Welcome to the Hockey Inside Out Show. I'm Montreal Gazette sports editor Stu Cowan, joined by regulars Chris Nilan and Jack Todd. And a very special guest this week, we have Kerry Fraser, the former NHL referee, now with a popular blog on TSN, making the calls. Kerry, what would you say to Senators fans who say the referees cost them the series against the Canadiens?
Well, I would say that the referees are human. It's a human error. There was a better way to approach it, to get to the net, but nonetheless, you got to lick your wounds. They had a great season. They finished strong, and good days are on the horizon for that club.
Now, the call, Chris Lee's quick whistle that disallowed the goal in Ottawa. Have you, as a player, remember a call happening like that, or
yeah,
or what
Fraser.
was your reaction?
Kerry always was the center of all the. No, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but. Listen, it's difficult. The referee's in a position where he doesn't see the puck, right? He doesn't see the puck. You lose a puck like that. Price sold it that he had it, and he makes the call. Another thing I think we failed to look at, there was a lot of crap happening after whistles in that game. After whistle, come pushing, punching, and it had escalated a little bit. And I think the ref wanted to just, let's whistle it down. No one's there yet, and we'll calm things down. So. Listen, if that was a call going against Montreal, I would have said, hee-haw. But no, listen, it's difficult. They say those things even out. It's just terrible that time of year it happened.
What was your reaction, Kerry, when you saw it?
I felt badly for the officials. When that camera shot with Chris Lee hanging his head and pointing to the face-off dot the other way, and his partner, Brad Watson, who had seen the puck available and open, it's one of those guys, we couldn't get it. We couldn't get it right. On that play, though, when you think about it, on the way it's set up, when a player is going to shoot the puck from the opposite side of the net, and as Nuck said, you got to be on one side or the other, and he was on the other side of the net to the shot. Typically, a referee will drift from the net, move more towards the corner. Not that far, though, as Chris Lee did. If PK Subban is shooting that puck, I am certainly going to move off the half wall, or half position on the line, to drift away, because if that puck's deflected, I'm going to eat it.
No, you're going to go over the glass when he...
Well, actually, it'd go over my head.
Now, Brendan Gallagher, Jack, takes a beating throughout the series. What's your reaction to the way the referees dealt with him in that series?
They have something against him. I don't know what it is.
You're right.
They showed that clip, 6 or 8 shots of Mathot mauling him, arm around his neck, throwing him down. No calls. What do they have against him?
Well, it started early in the season, and I wrote about it on Come On Ref. I talked about referees and hockey operations developing sort of a list of players that they believe are prone to falling down easily and trying to sell calls. And when that happens, that reputation builds and builds, and the snowball becomes an avalanche. And they want to make sure, and there's some, and this isn't right, but there's some component that I'm going to teach you, I'm going to show you. You don't dive on me. Don't embarrass me.
Thing is, Brendan Gallagher's not a diver. He works so hard. Yes, he falls down a lot. He gets hit a lot and goes down, but he doesn't dive. And that's what I don't like about this. Listen, if a guy's a diver, you deserve it. PK got his medicine. He's going to get his medicine to come. Brendan Gallagher does not deserve it. It's unfair.
Let me clarify, too. I love the way Brendan Gallagher plays. Yeah. And I know, as a referee on the ice, I could have worked with that kid, and we could have come to some respectful mutual agreement as to how I know he plays the game, and from how I want him to understand how I referee the game.
When it comes to their diving, do the Canadiens deserve the reputation they've got right now, Jack, do you think?
To me, they don't. I see actually the most egregious instance I can think of is a guy who really doesn't dive, but he did in the playoffs last year, Plekanec, against the Rangers. I think he was just so desperate to win that series. PK, I don't know. If he does, he's pretty good at it. Obviously, the league thinks he does. I agree with Chris, though. Gallagher, I don't think does. He's small. He gets knocked down. I would, if I were officiating, I would like him because the guy's always grinning. Yeah. He doesn't whine. It doesn't matter what happens to him. He's not over at the rev. Did you see what Mathot did to me? I don't get it.
Jack, you know what this brings to light, though, is that the referees don't have the ability, like we did, to communicate. You used to tell me what you thought of me, and I'd tell you back. At least we communicated.
Yeah, no, you were good to me. There were times, I was pissed off at you, and I wanted to give you my 2 cents. And it wasn't always, I'm going to give you 10 minutes because you're talking to me that way. But, if you give me the warning, then I'm going to shut up. But there were times you'd say things to me to settle me down or say, hey, watch out. This game's going to be a tough game.
Why is the
Use your
communication
head.
not there now?
Well, because one, they took the names off the back. I had a player, a captain of a team, come to me one time and say, "Hey, what's your partner's name?" He didn't know his name. So I told him. He said, "I like to call the guys by their first name, and I just don't know them anymore." And they wear visors and the helmets, and they're encouraged to stay away from the bench. Don't communicate with the players. And I hear players tell us that the officials today appear arrogant. They're unapproachable. And that's not a good thing.
And with the helmets, I can't see that beautiful hair, right?
That's true. That's why I quit.
I figured that had something to do with it.
With Max Pacioretty out, upper body injury, concussion, or whatever, is it a sign that is the game getting too fast now, Chris? Do you think, with the new rules and the way it's been opened up?
Not too fast. It's just systems. Everybody plays such a structured game in order to win. Coaches put the structure in. We got to play good defense to win. And you look at, people say Max, the injury, this and that. He had 2 goals in that series. He's not being himself. Stamkos, 3 assists. Come on, one of the best goal scorers in the league. Ovechkin, he's battled. He had some tough games, but he's not lighting it up. It's not so easy to score out there in the playoffs. There is no room. I say there's no room. It's fast, but it wouldn't be so bad if you had a little bit more room in that hockey rink. There's just no room out there to operate.
We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Kerry, there's some people in the NHL or coaches, GMs feel that the Canadiens have an advantage, that referees are intimidated when they referee a game in Montreal. What's your take on that?
I absolutely loved working in Montreal. The tradition and history of the franchise. When I walked into the old Forum, I could feel something special. When I walked into the Bell Center, I actually had the first game in the Bell Center with the Rangers. I picked up the first puck at the first whistle to give to Ronald Corey after the game. This franchise is amazing, the tradition and the history of it. And I feel that as a fan as much as a referee. And the energy that's created in the building by the fans is unlike anywhere else in the league. So why would you not want to be part of that? It stimulates players, it stimulates and should stimulate referees as well, not to be intimidated, but to be the best they can be.
When you watch the game today, Chris, the red line taken out, is there some of the new rules that you don't like?
I don't like the fact that guys fight with visors on. I don't like the instigator rule. Usually guys are willing to fight that are going to fight. I don't like the fact that guys can't take their helmet off and fight. I think it's stupid that they punch each other in visors. Listen, you used to be able, when you fought a guy, you might hit the helmet, okay? But now you're punching a visor, and I just think it's ludicrous. I think those should change, but fighting's being phased out. There's no question that at some point we'll no longer see it in the game.
Now, Jack, in the Ottawa series, there was the PK Subban slash on Stone. In your opinion, was that a major penalty in a game misconduct?
Well, this is something that bothers me that I would like to ask him about. What bothered me wasn't so much is it a major or isn't it a major. What bothered me is that they've taken away the discretion from the ref. If a major is going to be a game misconduct, haven't they taken away one of your weapons then? Well, in other words, you have the discretion of giving him the 5 minutes or giving him the 5 minutes and the game.
Where there's injury that results, or apparent injury, and the referees aren't doctors, they have to make a decision in the short span of time to determine whether or not there was an injury on the play. And that apparent injury is what the referee quickly decided based on the reaction of the player. I would have liked to have had a look at his wrist before he blasted off the ice. I want to inspect it. I'm not going to look in a guy's mouth. The thing that bugs me the most, though, guys, are the rules that aren't enforced. We just had a Game 7 in Washington the other night. There were multiple infractions that took place. Ovechkin's was the most egregious when he took Hickey in from behind and plowed his head into the glass. He followed his numbers all the way from the high slot, and finished a check on a vulnerable player. No penalty on the play, and then a rabbit gets pulled out of the hat with 2:38 about left in the game for a roughing penalty. And there were multiple infractions that were let go. Either let it go or call it the way. I personally want to see the rules enforced. That's the first line of defense and deterrent for players not to commit high hits and dangerous plays.
But in the playoffs, you must have liked it when the refs let it go.
Yeah, but we're talking about a different era, and again, back in the day, it was like, I almost loved being out there in the last 30 seconds of the game, taking a face-off in my zone, and being with that group, because if they ever got the puck to the net, you could do anything you want. You could give them the Dunsey Dubois, right on the bat. You could break your stick. You could chop someone. You could punch someone in the head. You ain't scoring that goal. There's no way it's going in the net, and I'm going to stop you. And you see that somewhat, but the rules have changed, and I agree with Kerry. They have to enforce them. People, remember when they first started calling the hooking on? Everybody's like, 10 penalties a game, but they've kind of weeded it out, right? And until they really start to enforce them, you're going to have these issues constantly, and there's so many different referees.
But when you see a guy get a suspension for something that wasn't called, to me, Chris could correct me if I'm wrong here, but to me, the best message to the players, the 2 minutes or the 5 minutes or whatever he gets right then, it means more than the suspension later.
Yeah.
That's the first line of defense. If you're protecting a guy's head, protect it then, not 3 days later from the league office.
Guys, what bothered me over the last few years since I've been out is watching plays where you have to know the difference as a referee between a 2-minute penalty, a 5-minute major, and a match penalty. And I saw plays, one had happened in Montreal. Scotty Gomez got hit from behind, driven into the board's face first by Myers from Buffalo. Myers got a 2-minute boarding penalty. It was wicked. I looked at it, I'm watching the game live, and I went, oh my God. And he gave him 2 minutes. Myers stayed in the game, scored the winning goal in overtime, and then got a 3-game suspension, as Jack suggests, the next day.
This guy right here, the league should get off their high horse and name him director of officials, what they should do. He says the things that I guess they don't want to hear, and that's the thing. He's more than capable of taking charge of that group of referees. I wish Bettman and Bill Daly and company would, like I said, get down off their high horse and hire this guy.
And I'd hire him as my Minister of Defense.
Your bodyguard.
I'm coming along.
Do you see a day when maybe the coaches get a challenge flag like in the NFL?
For sure. It's needed. I've, for 4 years now, lobbied with my blog and publicly on Nuck's radio show that the toughest call that the officials have to make is goalie interference, the enforcement of Rule 69. In that crowd, in that crash to the net, depending on the side of the net that the referee is on, he can't tell whether the player was pushed, shoved, interfered with the goalie, or didn't. And they have to make that call, not hockey ops off in a room in Toronto. They're all good people. They were good players, but they've never refereed a game in their career. This is a call that the referees have to make, and that's why finally they're going to put a tablet in the penalty box for the referees to determine the validity of goalie interference.
Back to the Canadiens for a second now. With Michel Therrien, you wrote a column this week saying that he deserves the credit for the Canadiens' success. What kind of feedback did you get on that?
Oh, all kinds of
Hate mail.
Oh, Jesus. I can't, people just go on and on, ranting and ranting and ranting. If it wasn't for him, this would be a good team. I said, Jesus, Murphy, they got 110 points. They went to the Eastern Final last year. There's things, I'm not a fan of dump and chase either, but my argument was he uses what he has. He has Price, he has a strong defense, and that's what he coaches to. And, to me, you don't argue with success. The argument is, how many games did you win?
No. Kerry, in this city, you're remembered for that infamous bench minor to Michel Therrien. What's your take when you see him now compared to when
I agree with Jack completely. I think Michel Therrien has made a transformation. He's gained experience. He went through the Pittsburgh situation, trying to deal with some stars. He is a much better coach, and I think he's done a good job with this team. The thing that I notice, he's an emotional guy. Michel Bergeron was an emotional guy. You saw it from them. They were flary, flamboyant. He now tempers it, and that's the mark of a good coach, knowing when and when not to. explode.
I saw him a few times the other night biting the tongue.
Oh, was he ever?
Once he kind of went like that, but there was no.
But that's good, self-control.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's show. Thanks very much, Kerry, for joining us. We'll see you again next week back on Hockey Inside Out.